Hello, my noble band of outlaws. Outlaw Samurai, come at you live with a video. Well, you saw the video. We're going back to another terraformers video. So, as before, terraformers right here. Go over the brief power set. Super strong, super fast. Have insane durability and toughness. And are basically not things that any ordinary human could fight. I'm not going to have to go into nearly as much time. Basically, these things have superhuman abilities with an usual max lifting of, I want to say, around 2,000 pounds of max lifting potential. Yeah, these things are swole. But that is not important. What is important is, who are they fighting today? Well, if you saw the video, Terraformers versus Demon Slayer. More specifically, I'm going to break these up into 3 primary videos. 4 technically, and I'll get to that in a moment. The 3 primary videos are for Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and my boy, the GOAT, Inosuke. Now you're probably wondering, why these 3 in particular? Well, they're the main trio, the main Demon Slayer trio that we see most of the time in major battles. Whenever Tanjiro's fighting a major threat, Zenitsu and Inosuke are always there to back him up. Now, in the Demon Slayer universe, they use what are known as breath styles. These are styles of combat that were created specifically for battling the demons, or vampires. Honestly, in Demon Slayer, I really feel like they're more vampires than demons, but I'll let you decide if you decide to watch the anime, or read the manga, which I have done both. But in any case, these breathing styles are taught to the Demon Slayers to kill demons. To kill demons in this world, you need to do one of 2 things. Expose them to sunlight, or decapitate them using a Nichiren blade. Now, what is a Nichiren blade? It is a blade made from a special iron, Crimson Tamahagane, in the show, that absorbs the energy of the sun 24/7. It is then forged into a blade, and when given to a Demon Slayer, the blade changes color, also called the color-changing swords. Now, aside from the Nichiren blades, which can vary all over the place, there is one specific type of Nichiren blade that is most important for this analysis. And that is the black swords. Yeah, you know, the stereotypical, oh, the most powerful blade has to be a black blade kind of trope in any anime that deals with swordsmanship as its main focus. One Piece has Yoru, Demon Slayers have the black blades. Now, why are the black blades important? Well, the black blades are a determination that you are able to use the most powerful breathing form in all of Demon Slayer, sun breathing, which literally harnesses the power of the sun to an extent. When if you do it correctly, your body heat will increase to the point where your sword turns a bright crimson red. It's a whole thing in Demon Slayer. I'd have to make an entire video just about that. And I don't want to make it too long. I have to already go through the power sets anyways. So, the first video we're going to be worrying about is our boy Tanjiro. I'll put a thing in the thing to skip to like 4 minutes, 10 seconds. So, Tanjiro. Tanjiro's backstory, real quick, is that he's the son of a coal maker, and his family has this historical dance called the Hinokami Kagura, or Dance of the Fire God. Now, or Sun God. I think it's either Sun God or Fire God, one of the 2. Now, this dance is actually sun breathing, but we don't learn that until much later on in the story. So first, Tanjiro, he goes down to a town, sell his charcoal. He's a really nice guy, you know, basic, stupid anime protagonist that's nice to everybody, to an extent. Well, Tanjiro, as he's returning home from a long day of charcoal selling, one of his neighbors from lower down the mountain that he lives on offers to let him spend the night. Tanjiro agrees, and next morning comes back to find his family had been completely slaughtered by the king of the demons. You know him, you love him, Michael Jackson. Yes, if you are a fan of Demon Slayer, you'll get the Michael Jackson joke. His real name is Kibusichi Muzan. But that's not important. At least for right now. I'll do a Demon Slayer thing later. Now, Tanjiro, once he finds his family dead, he then does what anyone else does. Gets attacked by a Demon Slayer named Ginryu, who's a Hashira. I'm not going to bother putting pictures of all the characters just because it saves time on editing. But Ginryu is a Hashira, the water Hashira, meaning he's the master of the water breath breathing style. The Hashiras are basically the pinnacle of the Demon Slayer Corps. They are the strongest, most powerful fighters the Demon Slayers have. So, when Tanjiro protests that he wants to turn his sister, Nezuko, the only surviving member of the massacre, back into a human, because you get turned into a demon when you drink Muzan's blood, and go, vampire! They really should have called it Vampire Slayer. But, in any case, Tanjiro then gets sent to the previous water Hashira, Okadaiko, or I think that's his name. The point is, Tanjiro gets trained in the water-breathing form, noticed here, the picture of Tanjiro with the water dragon behind him. Water-breathing is one of the first core forms ever developed, along with fire-breathing, thunder-breathing, stone-breathing, water-breathing obviously, and wind-breathing, which all have branching off styles. Water breathing being the most basic and maintains the most basic of all the forms. Once Tanjiro masters that and goes through the final selection process where he proves that he can become a demon slayer, he starts going out killing demons. Now, you may be wondering, where does the terraform aspect of this come into play? Well, I'm getting to that. I have to give you the backstory of Tanjiro. So, after Tanjiro basically fights a bunch of fodder demons, meets Inosuke and Zenitsu, he then comes across a demon, a lower moon. There are 12 demons in the series that are the most powerful. Tanjiro fights the strongest of these lower 6, upper moon 1, Yuri, a spider demon, who has like a weird family fetish thing, I don't know. But there is one demon among the spider family that is very much irrelevant to the terraformers. This being Father Spider Demon, which I still need to get a picture of, but I'll fix that in editing. Father Spider Demon seems to be as physically powerful as the terraformers, if not stronger. And here's the thing, if you're not strong enough, you will not cut through these demons, okay? These are incredibly... That's one thing I like about Demon Slayers. Just because you have the tool to do the killing of the demon, doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be able to do it. Alright? You can give a whole bunch of cannon fodder Demon Slayers Nichiren blades and they'll still get slaughtered. Alright? It's not just because you hand the main protagonist the weapon that can do the killing. No, he actually has to be strong enough to do it. Which, keep in mind, Father Spider Demon is as powerful as the terraformers. Now, early on, Tanjiro is not able to beat this guy. In fact, Yome has to show up and actually kill them. So we know that the Hashiras would be able to fodderize the terraformers. Especially since Gyome was able to decapitate the Father Spider Demon. Now I realize I have to download a picture of him to use for the editing. Was able to decapitate the Father Spider Demon like it was nothing. Like he was cutting a water bottle, basically. Now, since Tanjiro was able to technically incapacitate Upper Moon 6, he had to have help from his sister Nezuko and her blood demon art and everything. Blood demon arts are like magic. But the point is, Tanjiro was able to nearly kill Rui, but not quite there. You still had to come in and save Tanjiro, which shows that the Hashiras are easily able to take on threats that are even stronger than the terraformers. And any of the upper moons any of the upper 6 moons would easily be able to slaughter hordes and hordes of terraformers. That's why I'm not really making a video for the Ashura here. Because we know for certain that if Gyu is a baseline, then all the other Hashuras would be able to just go to town on these things. Honestly, if you gave the Hashuras the ability to fight these guys over the demons, they'd probably choose the terraformers, I'm not going to lie. Especially the big 3 of the upper moons, those being Kokoshibo, Azua, and Doma. Alright, those 3 are menaces on their own, okay? The author of Demon Slayer even said that by the time I realized how OP I had made the upper moons, it was already too late to change anything. You know that it's a sign of both good and slightly bad story writing if you make your villains so OP that you don't really know how the hero can beat them and make sense. Except with the classic strategy of just throw bodies at the problem until it goes away. But here's where things get good. After the whole thing with the spider demon, Tanjiro eventually goes and he trains more, eventually learning total concentration breathing, which is a state in which you are constantly breathing and constantly exhaling. A technique similar to how those who learn to play the didgeridoo, the native Australian tribal instrument, they actually have a breathing technique where they're constantly breathing in and breathing out at the same time, so that they can constantly keep playing the didgeridoo without much rest, or without much pause. This total concentration breathing allows Tanjiro to start accessing the Hinokami Kagura, which is ungodly physically demanding. However, once he obtains the Hinokami Kagura, he would be able to actually be a match for the terraformers, because he's actually in the state when he fights Upper Moon 6, the weakest of the Upper Moons, but still an Upper Moon. Upper Moons are pretty much city-wide levels of destruction. They destroyed an entire district fighting one of these in Demon Slayer. So yeah. Terraformers, they're not doing that kind of destruction unless they're in packs. So once Tanjiro learns total concentration breathing, this puts him on a place where he'd actually be able to fight the terraformers. Now, how would Tanjiro fare? Well, since he would have access to Hinokami Kagura, he would be able to actually fare pretty well, except for the fact that he wouldn't be able to last long. In fact, he's only able to maintain the Hinokami Kagura at the point in the story where he's at the moment. Keep in mind, Demon Slayer's manga is finished. So at the point of the story where we are with Tanjiro that I'm explaining, he's only able to use the Hinokami Kagura for about roughly 60 seconds to a minute and a half, if I remember correctly. Not an extremely long time, but in a battle, you can do a lot of shit in a minute and a half, especially if you're just cutting down opponent after opponent. Now, because of the Hinokami Kagura's extreme physical demanding, you need to keep in mind that when he was using it against the Upper Moon 6 Daki, he was using it stationary mainly to block Daki's strikes. Daki was constantly attacking with a barrage of strikes, and he was using it mainly to block and parry the strikes, and only could get close a couple of times. Since Tanjiro wouldn't really need to worry about blocking multiple supersonic strikes from the terraformers, he would actually be able to cut down much more. Make much more use of that minute and a half, especially since the terraformers tend to show up in groups anyways. So, honestly, in that minute and a half, with Tanjiro's speed, and keep in mind he still has his Nichiren blade at this point. I mean, every time he ends up fighting a powerful opponent, he ends up breaking them and needs a new one. But that's just to be expected with traditional Japanese forging, which I kind of like. They actually show that if you don't know what you're doing, you can easily break a Nichiren blade. That is until near the end of the series, where he gets the sword of the first ever demon slayer, Yorichi, the one who created the breathing styles, learned sun breathing, etc., etc. But with Tanjiro's now not having to worry about really blocking any kind of counterattack aside from like fists, which he could easily just slice the fists off of the terraformers, that minute and a half becomes a lot more impressive and a lot more dangerous. Especially if you're in a large group and you have the hypersonic speeds that Tanjiro and the rest of the demon slayers of his level currently have. I would actually feel Tanjiro, if a group of 100 terraformers attacked him, within that minute and a half he would be able to slay all 100 of those terraformers. Or at least cripple them in a way that they would not be able to get back up. Now, any group larger than 100, I don't think Tanjiro would be able to take on. Especially considering that base level demons usually have the strength of 4 to 5 times that of a human. So even if the weakest demon in Demon Slayer is 4 to 5 times stronger than a human, that's that's an equivalent of fighting about 5 people at once. And if the terraformers have the strength of the spider demon, which I want to say is at least 100 times stronger than any normal human, and at this point in the story, Tanjiro would have been able to slay the spider demon using the Hinokami Kagura and total concentration breathing. He would easily be able to wipe out all 100 of the terraformers while in that state. Now, the physical ramifications of exiting the Hinokami Kagura would take quite a massive blow on Tanjiro, where he would have to resort back to using the water-breathing form, which is a good form, but it's nowhere near as powerful as the Hinokami Kagura. Especially since that is the sword style required to defeat the King of Demons, Muzan, which honestly Muzan could just walk into a whole fucking horde of 1,000 of these things and kill them without blinking an eye. But that's Tanjiro versus the terraformers. I feel like, be able to 1v at least 100 of these things without any kind of real backup from either Nezuko, Zenitsu, or Inosuke. But any more than 100 of the terraformers, and Tanjiro would definitely need backup in order to handle them. Especially if they start blitzing Tanjiro after they realize that he's weakened from overexertion. Well, what do you think, my noble band of outlaws? What do you think of Tanjiro's chances against the terraformers? If you've not watched the Terraformers anime yet, I suggest doing so. Season 2 gets a lot of mixed reviews, but Season 1 is generally considered among the fans to be quite excellent. So, until next time, my noble band of outlaws, Outlaw Samurai tells all y'all, be crazy rednecks, be safe, use your weapons, and look forward to Inosuke and Zenitsu. Inosuke and Zenitsu will be a little more difficult for me, especially since they have a lot less combat feats than Tanjiro overall. So I may have to use later versions of Zenitsu and Inosuke than I did at the base of Tanjiro being able to fight the terraformers. By the end of the story, right before the Infinity Castle arc, yeah, Tanjiro would be able to solo at least like 200, 300 of these things on his own without help. But yeah, I'm out. Peace.